Hey y'all, we're picking up on Mercury retrograde, and I'm going to tell you about the Sabian symbol of the degree of the zodiac, where Mercury was last night and some of yesterday. Mercury was conjunct the new moon. So basically, Mercury was conjunct the sun and the moon at the same time. That's what a new moon is, a conjunction of the sun and the moon. And this can be a lot, just even without Mercury in the mix, because the sun expresses and the moon reflects. And usually we like some space to be able to do that. Potentially something first expresses itself and then we reflect on it. And you could argue that most of our growth happens in the reflection period. But during a new moon, there's like the situation where the expression and the reflection are happening quickly in rapid succession or at the same time. And with Mercury added into the mix, there's a layer on top of it where communication is added into that. So this could be communication outwardly or internally, usually both. And it adds a layer of complexity onto this new moon, which, in my experience, the new moons and the full moons, we're in their energy for the day before, the day of, and the day after. Some people feel that differently, and that's cool too. But where Mercury was during the new moon, when it was exact, which was really early this morning or late last night, depending on where you're located. And today's Thursday, the 20th, is Scorpio 29. And the Sabian symbol is Indian woman pleading to her chief for the lives of her children. I'm going to say one thing about this system of Sabian symbols, and that is that it is not fully politically correct or culturally appropriate. And working with these is part of my practice in working with teachings or sets of ideas that aren't fully aligned with my worldview, though there's still wisdom in there. And I think I've said this before. I don't know exactly what Sabian symbols are for. I just find them interesting and sometimes work with them in my process. And I know enough to know that I can share them with you and you might find something in them too. Continuing on with Scorpio 29, James's interpretation is prayer as a force that brings peace. And one of the main ideas of this symbol is basically the sacrifices that our individual self makes on behalf of the whole, or the all. You could say on behalf of the family or the community or the society, but it can be bigger than that. We can zoom out. And sometimes the idea of sacrifice really doesn't end up being a sacrifice, it ends up being a gift. But it can feel either way, it can feel both ways. I'll just keep reading from his stuff here. When our instincts get the better of us and our behavior goes outside acceptable limits, we must find a way to center in peace. Intense emotional focus. We are both soul and ego, and the image of the soul as mother and the ego as unruly sons is a helpful insight. The wildness of ego has an unsettling effect upon the community and will be checked for the sake of collective harmony. The chief represents the power of social censure. The mother's intercession to the chief on behalf of her children equates to soul activity, moderating ego-centered behaviors. Prayer is such a process, the intercession of soul's love to moderate unbridled passions. We must balance what we want with what society wants and trust this process. In the image, a mother pleads to her chief and indicates submission, yet it is implicit that a good chief will protect her valid interests. In all life, we need to balance what we want with what society wants, both looking after our own imperatives and yet also trusting in the community process. We are not likely to feel satisfied if we are obliged to truckle to others in order to resolve our most important issues, in the naive hope that our priorities are theirs. First and foremost, we ask to develop a reliable effectiveness in our ability to control the world, at least to the point where the basics are not at risk. Things like protecting the family from harm. The family unit, the family unit is the family unit is the foundation principle of the tribe. Society must first and foremost protect the family if it is to be accepted as a force for the good of the community. We are willing to defer to collective authority only to the extent that we feel that our nearest and dearest are protected and supported by it. From our personal viewpoint, we must develop the gift for putting our priorities clearly, first things first. Without this, personal accomplishment and enabling of our dreams is uncertain at best. We feel that any diminishing of our personal aims must be offset by the advantages of communal life, yet our personal goals need only be stated clearly and prioritized for this not to be a problem. The community surely is better able to thrive when its members are fulfilled, right? A functioning society cannot emerge without each member accepting and being made to accept a degree of self-sacrifice to minister the common interest. To achieve this, it must function to improve the effectiveness of individual aspirations as much as its own declared common dreams. I know a lot of people are talking about community and building community, and I'm hearing about this idea from a lot of different angles and perspectives. This is not feasible without forming allegiances with emphasis upon the principle of fair exchange and justice, backed up by the practice of caring and empathy. To feel both caring and cared for, we must be part of a society that responds appropriately to help balance rights and wrongs that arise as a result of our direct experience with the problems of self-fulfillment. Do you know anyone talking about alternate economies or anyone who is involved with building them? They've been a thing for a while now, and these types of things take a while to catch on, but there's so many ways to break into it. Bartering for something that you need, even if it's a partial barter. The other day I was talking to somebody and I'm relaunching an old business, but in a new way and with a more specific group of people that I'm working with. And she wanted to, and the person I met with expressed that she wanted to compensate me in the standard currency, but that, but the other things that she was offering were just as, if not more, interesting to me. And those things are things that I previously didn't have access to. I feel enriched by the exchange that is happening between us right now. And sometimes this kind of give and take stuff, when you give, it may not be returned immediately. Also, when you take, you may not have something to give in response, and that can feel a certain way, especially if you have certain stories about giving, receiving that still live in your body. And that's perfectly okay, by the way. There's nothing wrong with you if you have that. I'm bringing that in just to highlight that none of this is easy, but it is in the air right now. And people are wanting to engage in these conversations and experiment. And whether you're talking about them or working with them, that is actively moving energy toward those things. Let's move to the next degree. This is where Mercury currently is. It's 4:42 p.m. on Thursday, the 20th right now. King of the Fairies approaching his domain. Inner sovereignty. However pompous and controlling society may get, we still have our own inner world over which we hold sway. Awareness of our deepest yearnings. I am obsessed with this one. It's popped up a few times for me in different readings, and every single time I'm just like, can I get more of that, please? We may be keenly aware of the power of nature and also of the need for ego-driven behaviors to defend against risk, and we may well live out our lives subservient to the passions and restrictions that arise from these two forces. Yet in truth, we are sovereign and free. Would we only learn to act like a king whose domain is subtle and lovely? If we approach life with such regal confidence, then we find our expectations of self-fulfillment are met. We must focus the creative mind only on what we want to come to pass. We demonstrate true allegiance not to the causes similar to ours, but to causes that actually define us. There is but one cause that defines us completely. It is our own life. Our own domain is none other than the circumstances of our life, and we approach that domain as does a king expressing sovereignty. Central to the understandings of wisdom is the key mystery that there is nothing outside us other than a reflection of what is inside us. Life is a mirror, nothing more, nothing less. Some take on this knowledge as a burden of responsibility and feel chastened as their awareness is drawn to their imperfections. Yeah, let me pause here. Noticing something about yourself, your life, your habits that you don't want to continue to repeat the cycle of, that is not self-flagellation. That is the opposite. That is loving yourself enough to make a change. The harshness of it sometimes comes in when you decide to commit to a change and you can't follow through and you feel that whatever it is inside tugging at you saying that you're wrong. Hey, you committed to changing and you're not changing. And usually it's because we expect some kind of overnight change. If not literally overnight, we expect to be able to change our behavior significantly within a matter of weeks or months. And that is how it works sometimes. That is not how it works all of the time. And if that is not how it is working for you right now, that's not because you're bad or wrong or stupid or incapable in any way, shape, or form. This is the hardest part, the part in between. Enjoy the part in between. Okay, that was a sermon. Let me get back to what I was saying. Others feel the gift that goes along with this and appreciate the inherent promise that all developments in self-knowledge must necessarily be met by improvements in one's life situation. Full of self-confidence, we can then put aside futile concepts of good fortune or bad fortune, as though the gods were dealing our hand. I was meant to live this life. This is the life I was meant to live. I have to make these choices because this is what I chose. Do you? And if the answer is yes, that's fine. But there are other options available to you. You are free to release or receive. You are free to choose. You have the power. This is all about inner authority, and that is yours. All right, I'm going to continue to read. We get what we deserve. We get what we are ready to handle, and it is we who call it up. The world of imagination is powerful. It is what we imagine that comes to pass. This mystery is hinted at in the fairy king imagery. Yes, we do have a considerable measure of control over our future circumstances, and on the deepest level, complete control. Yet it requires that we are capable of focusing the imaginative creative mind passionately, consistently, and in detail upon something that has never before existed, something we desire and not anything else. Quite a challenge. Such creative power has its dangers, especially in a poorly disciplined mind. Free will allows us to call up dragons as well as fairies. We must be careful to whom and what we offer allegiance and be neither fearful nor self-indulgent. Both are wasteful and lead to a poverty of joy. With practice, understanding, and experience, a highly developed person will know what they chose. With practice, understanding, and experience, a highly developed person With practice, understanding, and experience, a highly developed person will know what they choose must come into form. When inner vision becomes clear and expectation of fulfillment becomes normal, then great achievements are realized. Okay, so there's an additional paragraph of commentary from another commentator, and he says, at first I thought this was no. And if this is And there is, of course, a significant aspect of no in this symbol. I don't want or agree with that. But there is more. I want this instead. The latter is please. In life, both situations occur. We may be confronted with situations that we simply don't like and to which we say no without having an alternative, oven-ready alternative to present in its place. At other times, things we don't like can be replaced eventually by things we prefer, things we have imagined. Without having pre-imagined an alternative, all we will be able to do is say no. One assumes the king of the fairies approaching his domain has already envisaged how he wants things, and either he will have already made it so, or he will soon do so. So please is the one of the key words here. No, please, possibly just please. And these are decisions. This is decision making. And that is why judgment and discernment is so powerful. Not being open to everything, paying the most attention to your inner authority, getting connected with what you want. Jack Sparrow and his compass, he didn't know what he wanted. And once he did know what he wanted, you can't stop him because he already knew his power. He didn't have to be convinced of it. I really like the whimsical nature of this symbol and the interpretation. I think it is super world building pilled and expressive of the experimentation that a lot of us are being called toward right now, not having the answers and being okay with it, and stepping forward and inviting other people to collaborate, experiment, be creative with us. There is a part of you that I believe you've connected with, urging you or pulling you in a direction. You might have keywords, you might feel magnetized toward certain people, you might be seeing certain symbols, you might be compelled to work on creative projects again or do something you've never done before. All good things. I'm going to leave this here. If I end up making journaling prompts for these 2 degrees, I'll leave them in the description. I hope you got something out of this like I did, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.